steering group to look at the actual project before it goes to Housing Development Committee on the 23rd of June. It's also an opportunity to explain to officers of the council who haven't been involved in the project up until now exactly what's been happening and where we're at. I should explain, my name is Valerie Robinson. I'm from the Planning Department in Camden Council. With me is Eugeniou, he's director from Theatro Technis, and Liz Jones, who's our architect from the Castle Architects Cooperative. There have in the past been a number of reports from Cypriot community worker, from social services, from Cypriot Housing Project, a number of groups of people who have put together reports outlining the need for some sort of specialised accommodation for Cypriot elderly. This morning we had a very successful presentation to 40 or 50 elderly people who regularly use Theatro Technis and 94 Camden Road. And they came along, the scheme was presented to them, and we videoed their comments. So that too will form part of our presentation later on.
For a long time, we realized there is a need of something different than what exists. Most of our elderly people come from the rural area, where life was different. In a very close community, where people grew up, born, got married, had children, get old, have grandchildren, and die. There's consistency, continuity of life. And the elderly had retained their dignity, their pride, and their usefulness in the community, and the community cherished that. They passed to the community their experiences, their crafts, their knowledge, which was something that was never taught in universities, in high schools, and other educational institutions. When they came from that rural area to London, to unfaced city, faceless city, then that continuity was disrupted, was cut off, and they had to work to make a living. Work became just to make a living, to get money and support their families. So anything outside of that was no time for them. And when they reached the age of 60 for women, 65, their life has ended, their contribution has ended as far as the society is concerned, the economic system says now you cannot contribute, therefore you are put aside.
It would be shot. Is he going to shoot this?
Γράψουμε Eugeniou.
Ναι, δεν με ακούγεται σου μαντιά, είναι Εγγλέζες.
Είναι Εγγλέζικα.
Δεν ούλες Εγγλέζες.
Εσύ θέλεις να μάθεις αγγλικά να μπορείς...
Μα πώς θα μάθω.
Τις μάθεις τούτες ελληνικά.
Ναι, πώς θα μάθω.
Δεν μάθουμε.
Θα σε ξετοιμάζω και δεν σχολείς τόσους περιπέζου. Δεν να σου το πω ρε Ανδρέα, για όνομα το Θεάβη.
Περιπέζου.
Είναι μέτρο νομίζεις που είναι περιπέζει. Για η άλλη μέτρο. Τούτες περιπέζου.
Our son went into hospital. When he came out from hospital, he was unable to cope with Mrs. McRuckus at home. And this is how she was referred to a Grady house.
Να σου το πω και το... Μα με έξυπνη. Δεν ξέρω γραμματά, μα μου γελά κανένα σε μένα.
She was admitted to us in 1985 and ever since she's very good. The only great problem we have is disease.
The language.
Yes, language.
Το μόνο που με χαλά και μαραζδόν, Ανδρέα, που δεν ξέρω εγγλέζικα να τους μιλήσω.
Αυτό είπε η κυρία Ράδα τώρα.
Δεν μπορώ.
Sometimes she started speaking in English to us and then she just...
Δεν μπορώ γιατί δεν ξέρω γράμματα.
Αν μιλάει η κυρία Ράδα, σας παρακαλώ μιλά.
Ναι, θέλω να σου πω.
Ας ρωτάει ερωτήσεις. Have you noticed anything that she or any other Cypriot elderly are missing here? I mean, do you think they are 100% happy, not
No,
happy, satisfied? Or
they're not.
they are missing.
They're not 100% happy because the language, as I said before, the communication is very poor because we haven't had any, we haven't had a Greek-speaking member of staff or a cook or anything.
Never.
No. So when it comes to getting through to them, it's very difficult. Sometimes she came up, started speaking English. A bit of English she knows, and then she just starts speaking in Greek, and you stood there, you just don't understand.
Δεν ήξερα αγγλέζικα, από κάποτε λάρι μου, English ίδια. Λέω ότι τώρα να κάνω catch, λάρω ότι να πούν English. True.
Yes, true.
Να κάνω catch, λάρω ότι να πούν English. Δεν ήξερα, έτσι απίζω κανέναν ποτσιπορά και λάρω ότι δεν τα καταφέρνω.
She's a lovely person. I mean, she shouldn't be here. It's a pity why she had to be sent into an old home. She's quite capable of looking after herself, and she had a room somewhere or flat, or with the domiciliary services, she could
Look after herself outside.
Unfortunately, the traditional family unit that was so strong in the strains of urban society have loosened and have no longer fulfilled that traditional role, and the elderly have been left to their own device and neglected. What happened to those who no longer had the community support and the family support and no longer could look after themselves? The only chance for them was an old people's home where they felt totally isolated, and it was a step to the cemetery or to Friambana Hospital, where they ended as a vegetable because then they will not be able to be a nuisance to anybody.
Ένα γιον του, και πάλι.
Αλλά γιατί έπιασες για νοκομείο?
Για νοκομείο γιατί φέστα.
Τα παιδιά, το γιο σου.
Θέλανε, τα ήθελα τους πατάκια, δεν τους τα δίκον και τους ουλάκες. Και είπασαν ότι είναι ψημίλα. Από την ώρα που πάτησαν στο πόδι μου έσω τους, το γάλα μου επλέγωνα το γαλατάρι μου. Η αλήθεια το Θεό του.
Τα παιδιά θέλουν τους γάλας να γεράσουν, να πιάνουν την ηλικία και γι' αυτό. Τα μέσα προπάντως γέννημα τα μέσα,
δεν είδα γέννημα τα μέσα, είναι στην Κύπρο που γεννήθηκε παντρευτή. Γέννημα τα μέσα.
Θα προτιμούσες να έχεις το δικό σου φλάτ?
Βέβαια.
προτιμά να έχει.
Την ημέρα που πέθανε ο αγορασμό είμαι ευχαριστημένη. Κάποιον δύο λάδος σας να με φροντίσετε να μου δώσουν ένα φλάτ. Και παιδιά μου έχω σπίτι και δεν μπορώ να φύγω. Ο γιος μου κάθε λέω λέει μου να φύγει. Λέω του πού να φύγει. Να πάει όπου θέλει, μέσα στο Τσόρτσι λέει μου να σου δώσει σπίτι. Λέω του μα ο κύριος Τσόρτσι είναι στη σπίτι και δεν να μου δώσει. Λέω του φύγει εσύ, εγώ δεν μπορώ να φύγω, έχω φαμίλια. Το σπίτι η ελάστικα, να πούμε το σπίτι είναι πάνω μου. Και η ελάστικα και έβαλα το μύθι το χάσω να ρίξει και εκεί. Και από την μέρα που στείλνε ο ρέμπο, έβαλαμε τον τζίνο μου πάνω, στο ρέμπο, και δεύτερα βάλαμε εμένα.
Δεν έχω ούτε μια Κυπρία κοντά μου. Μπαίνω, έσωρούνουμε, πληρώνουμε και μέσα, αν έχει κανέναν να μου. Στο καθάρισμα του σπιτιού μπορώ, με αρρωσταίνει που τα χέρια μου, τα πόδια μου. Ασύψω, ζαλίζουμε, έτσι δεν έχω κανένα. Έρχεται η κορμά, και εκείνη 6 μωρά. Πού να τα αφήσει και να έρχεται. Δεν έχω κανέναν άλλο, μόνο να μου γίνει την κόρη μου. Έχω και γιον και άλλοι, δεν έρχονται κανένας.
Χώρα πριν, αλλά μετά που παντρεύτηκα, πήγα στο Κρίνης. Και κάτω, δηλαδή σε εσύ μοναξιά, δεν είχε ένα άλλο γρήγορο και κάτω, αναγκάστηκα να φύγω από εκεί κάτω, να έρθω εδώ πάνω. Επί 30 χρόνια βρίσκα και κάτω.
Τώρα που είσαι στο Camden νιώθεις καλύτερα?
Νιώθω καλύτερα επειδή έχω πατριώτες που με μιλώ, ναι.
Ενώ προηγούμενος δεν υπήρχαν.
Ένιξε.
Τώρα που είσαι σε council plan.
Ναι, είμαι εδώ στο Houston. La Vita House. Το ξακουνμένο, είναι το ξακουνμένο.
La Vita House.
Ναι.
Πώς βλέπεις εσύ την ιδέα του νέου
Very nice. Very good.
Θα ήθελες να είσαι καταναστός να πάρει μέσα να
Δεν λόγω.
Το φλάτ μου είναι πολλά μεγάλο. Είναι, μπορώ να σου πω ότι είναι οικογενειακό φλάτ, δεν είναι για μόνο. Αλλά το μόνο είναι σε 6 χρόνια που είναι μοναξιά κοντά μου, που με πειράζει τόσο πολλά. Προτιμούν να συναγούν να είμαστε όλοι μαζί σε παρέα, δεν ξέρω εγώ. Η μοναξιά είναι πολλά δύσκολο στο πλάι μου. Διότι σαν ήρθαν χρειάζεσαι κάτι, αν είσαι άρρωστος, ξέρω εγώ, ποιον να γράψει. Με γείτονες, με 6 γείτονες.
Έχεις γείτονες για μέ?
Είναι πολλά μόνοι μου εγώ για μέ. Εγώ σε 3 χρόνια, 4 που δεν ξέρω ποιος είναι δίπλα μου. Ακριβώς είναι δύσκολο για να μαντωρήσει ένα πλάτο στην τέτοιο. Όταν έχει προβλήματα της αρρώστιας, είναι πολλά πιο δύσκολο.
So we began to think there must be another way. And with the help of Valerie and other people and the steering group and discussion we had, we developed a concept, a model where people could live as human beings, as trying to prevent reaching to the state where they should be sent to an old people's home or a free of marriage hospital, that it could be something very close to what they had in the village and find their pride, that they can live there, there would be young people living there, there would be a cafeteria, shops, an advisory service, counseling, and people from outside will come into the center, young people present theater workshops, and also the elderly people are passing their crafts, their knowledge, their stories to the young people. So there's a continuous movement rather than say, oh well, there you are, stay there, or you're going to die, forget about it. So with that in mind, and with the support of Liz and Valerie, we began to put that into some shape. And this is what you're seeing here today. And Liz could explain more about it.
Well, it's a familiar enough story that the elderly in sitting and cut off, life becomes miserable, that as outsiders to that community we feel frustrated. It's extremely unusual to come across such a vital group as this who are actually prepared to do something about it. Here we have a drawing of the whole site on which the project is situated. There are different areas of accommodation which we'll talk about in detail in a moment, but briefly they are family housing, shop, 1-bedroom flats, and this is the shelter block. And perhaps if we look at this in more detail now. To the right here then we have the main entrance of Kentish Town Road. This is linked through to the offices and to the shelter block at high level via these balconies and waiting areas. On the ground floor, as you move through, come into the first part of the cafe and then into the double height space of the cafe, which is linked at the back through to the day room of the sheltered housing block, which you can just see behind the stairs there. And at first floor level, it's linked visually via these windows to the offices and to the circulation areas of the sheltered block. The windows look onto the garden beyond. Up above this area is a very sketchy representation of some of the flats, showing how the flats are integrated with the rest of the building. The idea of this was that the cafe would form the social heart of the whole complex, and it links through to the day room of the sheltered block. This has its separate entrance with a lift and staircase, offices, access through to the garden. And here the layouts are the typical flats in that block, with the utility room and casual area next to it. There's a glazed corridor which faces onto the gardens, with the allotments, the sundial, the clay oven, the herb gardens, which are also enjoyed by people who come into the cafe. These are the flats for people who don't need full sheltered accommodation care. They're 1-bedroom. They can be used by people in wheelchairs or with disabilities. Each set of flats is grouped around a staircase with a utility room. The idea again was that there should be natural places for different people to congregate without having to make a special effort to be sociable if they just feel like a bit of company. To the left of that is the shop, which might be the community shop which is selling vegetables produced in the allotments. Above that is a flat for rent. And on the far corner of the site up here, we have 4 family houses. Here we have 2 drawings showing what the building will look like, the building complex will look like, from the garden and from the street side. The upper drawing shows the building complex from the garden side, and the lower drawing from the street.